Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to The Perspective. For those just tuning in now, I'm curious. I just played my new intro, and I could use some feedback on it. Do you like the music? Does the music suck? Could I improve on it in any way? This is the show where people call in and talk about their supernatural beliefs, whether they've seen aliens or not, and also conspiracy theories. And as you can see, there is no guest host next to me. I had a question mark on the flyer. So without further ado, I would like to introduce my special guest co-host for the evening, none other than one of my favorite people, Inquisitive Quandary. How are you?
I am good. How you doing?
I am doing good, and I'm excited that you're doing this show with me tonight.
That's great.
You and I mesh on so many levels, the way we talk to people and the way we approach conversations. And, I'm excited.
Indeed,
So
same here.
if you could, before we do have a couple callers waiting, and before we get to them, could you go ahead and just tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Well, IQ, Inquisitive Quandary, not to be mistaken with a genius, because it really stands for somebody who questions themselves. Introspection, that's what I deal with. I don't really argue the Bible. I don't quote Bible verses. I don't, do any of that mess. I'm here to help people question themselves better and get people connected. This is why I'm pretty much a moderator in just about 2/3 of the entire atheist community.
You are everywhere. And you don't find IQ. IQ finds you.
Yeah. It's I just do what I can. And I got into this just to be here. And all of a sudden, there was a hole in the canopy. I saw people where the phrase was criminally undersubscribed. And so I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to just start dropping links in chats. And I started doing it on Neil's show. And then it just kind of branched off from there. And I just started becoming a moderator everywhere. And props to Kristen, because she got me into moderating for the ACA, which is awesome, because I never thought that I would be doing that. But, it is what it is. You just, you do what you can.
Are we talking, the best name ever moderator? One of my favorites.
Oh, yes. The best name ever.
She is my favorite moderator, so you do have to take a backseat to her. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I tip my hat.
Yeah.
She is the awesome sauce.
She is, but she would kill me at the fact that we've been talking about her this long. So
she's hiding in her box. We get it.
She is. So, originally, I was going to play a short video so we could talk about how claims work, but we've already got 2 callers lined up. So what I'd like to do is bring on our first caller for the evening. Chris, you are on with IQ and Ethan. How are you?
This is Chris, Greater Pittsburgh.
Hey, Chris, how you doing?
Chris.
Yes, Ethan and I are mutual members of Atheist v. God Believer Exchanges.
Yeah.
Version 3.
So what do you got for us today?
Yes. I hope in the direct Facebook message you were able to see this. That, let's see. A warhorse Christian apologetics, if you will. It's a Google Doc. A Google Doc is not visiting a weblog and I have a section. No, it's more like a
keep in mind
MS.
The audience can't see this Google Doc. So if you could explain what you're calling about.
Yeah, I know. I will.
Awesome.
First of all, this is so. Trust me that it's I'm not promoting to you a weblog. It's like I said, it's like a Microsoft Word document, but in the Google Cloud. So that's what I shared with you.
Okay.
I don't know if you want to scroll through it too, as I do.
Well, I won't be able to while I'm watching this, but if you could just summarize specifically, was it a supernatural claim or a ghost story? What is it?
Yeah, I say, the half-truth that the document is a personal supernatural experience. Now, what it is well, the first bishop of Kition, nation-state of Cyprus, present-day Larnaca, and the Bible story of Lazarus of Bethany, the first bishop of this isn't Israel, Judea that he became bishop in. He sailed, supposedly, it's not in the Bible that he sailed, but he became, after he rose, okay, by Christ's miracle. Okay, I say it's theology places it in uppercase T. Eastern Orthodox, Greek Orthodox tradition, capital T, that, the bishop of this town in Cyprus and Lazarus of Bethany are one and the same person? That's the question. I have a question mark. I'm not stating it. That's a question mark I have in the Google Doc.
Okay, sorry. Could you try and get to where you're going with this? Is there a supernatural event?
Yeah, I gave you the dramatic thing that. And then there is two sections of some science that this is the story Lazarus of Bethany, the same person that's become bishop of a town in Cyprus.
So what is the specific claim you would like to talk about?
Yeah, you heard that the Christian tenet, Jesus is named the God Man. So this is more than just indirect evidence that a God exists.
Oh, great!
A divine Christ, a divine Jesus. Say, I don't like saying Jesus because it just means Joshua. In our church, we usually say Christ. Okay. And then
I'll hold you just for 1 second. So what we're dealing with right here is you have a document that is supplemental to the Bible that does support stories that it says in the Bible. That's pretty much where we're at this point, right?
You caught it. Eastern Orthodox, Greek Orthodox tradition with a capital T. I think if you went to a theology dictionary, they would capitalize Greek Orthodox tradition, capital T. That's how important it is. It could be to theology. It's not the Bible, but it's tradition, capital T. Oral.
Sounds legit. I do capitalize the first letters in my name. So, I mean, we're good so far.
Okay. Here is the heading. I said, with the Bible, which can be circular reasoning, onto science epistemology. Okay. Onto the archaeology of Cyprus. An inscription, Christos, Greek for the Hebrew Messiah, is on the sarcophagus of, well, let's say it is the second death, perhaps, of Lazarus in the Bible story. That's in John, the book of John, chapter 11. Yeah. Okay. And potentially his bones are found there. They were found in 890 Common Era. I'm using Common Era instead of AD. You'll laugh with me. All right. Potentially.
Just for clarification, sorry to interrupt, but just for clarification, you said the second death of Lazarus, that after he'd been resurrected and then brought back, and not the Greek philosophical death of when they say the last time somebody utters your name type second death.
This isn't. Go ahead. File me. I talked over you. IQ.
Oh no, you're good. I was just clarifying like what you meant by the second death.
Oh, you're thinking aloud. Okay. It is I believe, I hold to the tenet, we hold to the tenet that there is a general resurrection, of course.
Okay.
That's why in the Bible, this comes from the Bible, they call Christ the first fruits, that's uppercase F, of the resurrection. You could just let's make it more clear with it's parenthetically when it says he's the first fruit.
Do you think?
First fruit,
Sorry, I don't want to.
As in like a
Chris.
As like a September harvest.
Chris.
Okay.
If
anyway,
we could kind of get to the gist of what you're trying to say.
Well, IQ asked. I think he was asking his second death. Christ didn't resurrect him, but raised him. Resurrection comes later, second coming. Okay, there it is. I want to put that in. So yeah, he still was a man. He didn't have an afterlife body. All right. Okay, potentially DNA analysis of the bones. There's some left on the nation state of Cyprus. I think the crown of his skull is there, but the rest of his bones were the word is translated back to the Greek Orthodox C. We still call the section of Istanbul Constantinople. It was translated back to Constantinople. It means the relics were moved to Constantinople. Bishop. Let's call him Bishop Lazarus. I'm trying.
It sounds like, sorry, Chris. It kind of sounds like you're trying to tell like a long story. Do you think you can get to the claim, for instance, or the event you're referring to?
There is two parts. I mentioned DNA analysis of the bones. All right.
Okay.
Now, that could be, and I haven't found anything, so it's citation needed that they can DNA analysis see that this person originates from Judea. Okay, we're not going to say you can't. There's no cousins, great cousins of Lazarus you can check it with. All right, today, but no, you might want to see that he is. If these bones are from someone, hopefully, and it'll be on my case, positive to my case, that he's from Judea, not from Cyprus. Okay, and then secondly, I was going to add. Secondly, importantly, I said two sections: geoscience, in terms of limestone and marble patina dating. They also did the same kind of dating with the brother James, the brother of Christ, bone box. They did the same dating. And
when you say they, who's they?
These both date to the first century.
Okay, so here's one last time. What I really need you to do is kind of move along to the claim or the instance.
I did finish. I said that. I said that there is two things. It's kind of maybe tenuous, dear Ethan. Yeah, thanks. That DNA analysis will point to. Now, and I have the inscription too.
Okay, so what is the DNA analysis of what points to what?
I said relics too many times. I meant to say the bones of Bishop Lazarus of this Cyprus town.
Okay, so
Greek. Okay, I think this is all coming together. So where we're at here is what you're proposing is that there is a set of bones in a particular town, something that is tangible that we can go to, that we do have modern technologies that may be able to link to confirm certain biblical stories. Is that pretty much summarizing what you're talking about?
John chapter 11, the death and raising of Lazarus.
Well, it certainly sounds intriguing. Definitely send Ethan any links that you have to any progressions that come about from this. I see where you're going with it, is that there's something that there may be a lead to something that may confirm a Bible story, but where we're at with this is they're all still stories. And if you can do because DNA can just tell you a lot about, because it just compares the DNA to something. You can see, you can read the lines of code and match it to people of a general area. You can say, yes, this person was from here or within this general area, or you can pinpoint a lot of different things with this DNA, but it still doesn't really confirm exactly who it is, because we don't have a DNA match. We don't have Lazarus's DNA to say, yes, this is a confirmed match, you are the father type thing.
Yeah, that's why I quickly said, and it's true. You know, there is no great cousins who claim to be of Lazarus or Mary and Martha. You know, that's Lazarus's sisters in the Bible, who can claim that they have a relation lineage. I guess there's no one.
Even let's say, you know, for instance, let's say the DNA does point to you know, this bishop or Lazarus. What do you think? I wouldn't necessarily consider that evidence for God just yet. I would think that was just, hey, we have a DNA that matches someone.
Yeah, best case scenario, they do the DNA test and it says this person is from Judea descent, and okay, cool, we've got a person that is from a certain time period. They can even do matches for when this person typically should have been alive, and yes, we've got a human being from a particular place, from a particular time, but it does nothing to back up the stories.
I have to say a big number 3 that I failed to mention: the inscription. I think I was going to get into the inscription. Okay, the inscription reads, and it's with the patina on it. It dates to the 1st century, so it wasn't a hoax, latter-day hoax. The 4th century. So I'm sorry. The 4th day Lazarus, meaning he rose after 4 days. He rose after 4 days. So they call him with capital F, like a proper name. They call him, the description says, the 4th day Lazarus, friend of Christ. That's what the description says. And it dates to the 1st century. Okay. I want to importantly say that number 3, you know, I said there's 2 sections. Actually, there's 3 sections.
Okay. You know, I don't think yet that necessarily equates to a God, because right now, you know, we're just looking at a book, but that's it, and we can't necessarily use the book to prove the book. We need to, you know, verify through independent sources.
I said it would be circular reasoning.
Okay.
Although, hey, next Tuesday I have this, if you allow me. New Testament resurrection, Turin shroud equivalence. Okay.
Ooh.
So that's more heavily epistemology on a resurrected Christ.
All right. Well, yeah. If you could go ahead.
There's even a time marked video from an MD, PhD, and he's doing a presentation on the shroud, and he's able to zoom in to leaded ball blood marks on the shroud, and they match archaeology digging up these 2-ball leaded balls, whips that they say was used on Christ, Roman whips. They call them flagra. So, yeah.
I think you're going to need to save some of that for next week, buddy, because that's a good topic, the Shroud of Turin, and that's something that actually revolves around. It's supposed to be it was supposed to be wrapped around Christ, so that's something that we can directly go for. I mean, what you're talking about today, I mean, the best case scenario is that it may substantiate somebody's lineage claims with
Right.
all the DNA evidence. But the Shroud of Turin,
Yeah.
that's a juicy
I'll follow up.
conversation right there. I
I'll
think you
follow
should
up
get
with
some of your data together and really come at us hard with it, because that's a good conversation.
Yeah, awesome, Chris.
Okay.
Thanks for calling in.
Just to give a background about me,
Chris, we do have to move on to our next caller.
I'm into college football.
Chris,
and to say that.
Excuse me, Chris.
That,
Chris.
I'm actually
Excuse me, Chris.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. We do have to move on to our next caller. So I do appreciate you taking the time to call in.
Here's a light part.
We don't have time for that, Chris. I'm really sorry. Okay, but
save that for next week, buddy. Thanks for calling, though, man.
Have a good day. All right, so I guess next week, Brainbug will be on, and we'll be talking about the Shroud of Torah. Chris, if you're still watching, next time maybe get everything down to a solid, quick point, and then we could go over it. How are you enjoying your first caller, IQ?
No, this is great. I'm loving this. Can't say I could do this all day because I work too damn much, but this is fun.
It is. It's great talking to people and hearing their stories, and to me, this is a great learning opportunity for me. And now I know, hey, I have to look into the Shroud of Torah for next week. And I'm pretty sure if Puck's watching right now, he's going to make sure I do that. Puck, I will say this. Puck, for those who don't know, he is one of the greatest teachers, in my opinion. I mean, he's constantly, he's always educating me, and he's a good guy and a good friend.
Oh, he is on his shit. That's what it is. He's on it. A couple quick things. Puck will be featured on Truth Wanted this Friday.
Ooh.
The man, the legend. Puck.
Objectively Dan is interviewing Puck?
He is going to be co-hosting Truth Wanted with Objectively Dan this Friday. That is true.
Awesome.
Today is Neil the 604 Atheist birthday. He's trying to get to 2,000 subscribers. Everybody just chill him out and just subscribe to Neil the 604 Atheist, because he's just the man.
Yeah, he is the man. Also, guess who's going to be on Truth Wanted on November 6th?
Uh-oh.
Dude, I'm going to be on Truth Wanted.
Nice. Congrats, man.
Thanks. Are you ready for our next caller?
Let's do this.
Sweet. Noodle, you are on with IQ and Ethan. How's it going?
Hi, I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I am doing well, thank you. Appreciate you calling in today.
Mm-hmm.
What did you...
I want to start off by saying our last caller, Chris, actually talked a lot about a lot about what would have assisted in what I'm about to say.
Okay. Oh, great.
I'm going to start off by saying demons are aliens, aliens are humans, and every religion describes the same thing.
I'm sorry, what was that last part?
I said every religion describes the same story.
And what story are you referring to?
Like how there would be a Messiah and whatnot.
Okay, and when you say
Christ and everything,
when you say aliens are I'm sorry, demons are aliens and aliens are humans, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean by that?
Well, aliens are just subspecies of humans, and demons are just a different form of alien.
Interesting.
Do you
want
me to build upon that?
Yeah, if you could, that would be great.
I should probably just start off by compiling my short story. So starting from the age 6 to 12, I was sexually abused as a child, except when I turned 12,
I'm sorry.
That sucks.
got possessed by a demon. But let me explain. What happened was I was being an idiot. I was putting myself around very evil people, and I believe that this evil came from them and transferred to me.
Well,
We
I
were
want to be.
screwing around with ghost stuff.
This is not your fault.
And what happened? Yeah.
This is
what
not your
happened
fault.
was I would only be able to describe it as I took a very immense whipping of a whip on my side, and I physically felt the burn and pain of a whip, and it looked like a little anorexic child crawled under my skin.
Are you, if you don't mind me asking, are you seeing anybody about any of this trauma?
You mean?
I mean, this is a supernatural show, so I mean, I won't string you or anything, but
because
that sounds like a lot of trauma that you should definitely see somebody for.
I can explain how there's a fine line between mental illness and possession, if you would like me to. Usually the majority of possession stories are just the mind compensating for things they haven't conquered yet. But there are rare cases where it isn't just the mind.
Well, what do you mean by that?
If you go to any church, before they decide that you need an exorcist, you will get evaluated, and they will determine whether you are telling the truth or not, and whether it is just your brain creating something. What I like to describe it as is the cigarette effect. The other day, my boyfriend played a prank on me, and he put an unlit, and I wholeheartedly, truly believed that I was burned, even though I wasn't.
Right.
And that's where demons come into play with mental illness. When your brain tries to compensate for something you don't want to face, it creates the worst thing you can imagine.
So I guess my question is, do you think it's possible then that it's not demons and it is your brain alone doing that?
I considered that at one point, and then it got out of control because other people would see what's going on around me, and I knew I wasn't crazy.
What do you mean they would see what was going on around you?
It got to a point where when people would purposefully provoke it in my household, that they would get things thrown at them.
I'm sorry, that they would get what?
Like a poltergeist type things just flying off of shelves and whatnot.
Yes. And this wasn't fun either. I would constantly wake up with fingerprint bruising all over my body. I'll wake up with like 100 bruises, or it'll have been, I'll see them in sleep paralysis, and I'll physically feel, hear, see, smell everything that it does. And even when I'm fully conscious, I would get, out of nowhere, something would pull the back of my shirt, something would scratch me, something would move something. And it wasn't fun. I wish this was a joke.
May I ask, I'm sorry, have you sought out a therapist to assist with your trauma? Because if you're interested, there is a really good website. It's the Secular Therapy Project. I'm sorry, seculartherapy.org. And they are, can be tremendously helpful.
Yeah.
I mean, if anything, at least to give you a secular view of this, because you can go into any church, you can look up any sort of dogma or religious belief, and they'll have explanations for things like this that contain supernatural elements to it. And just for at least reference, try looking into something like that to try to get more of a worldly view on what these things could possibly be, without really
Yeah.
taking it to heart, but just to get another perspective on it.
Mhm. I'm fully aware that you are concerned that this could be just a mental illness. As much as I want to believe it was just a mental illness, I can't. And I understand you want me to go to a religious sect to see what it's all about. And they will completely understand, because I can tell, because I know who it came from, who it went to, and where it went now, because I was recently exercised.
Are you okay?
It's journey. I am completely fine, if I'm being honest with you, because it came into me when I was 12 years old, and my entire rest of my life, I couldn't control, this is where we're going to get into talking about Anunnaki pedophilia syndrome. Do you guys know anything about that?
No, not off the top of my head.
Sorry, I don't.
No. This is a special document that I believe was written by a quote-unquote otherworldly being and Pope Benedict XVI.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, this document about Anunnaki pedophilia syndrome was written by what claims to be an otherworldly being and Pope Benedict XVI. Now, after reading this document, I was directed to contact him once I know what I do now.
I think if you're open to it, I think one of the best things to do right now, or at some point, would be to check out Recovering from Religion or the Secular Therapy Project. I really think they could help you out in this area, but better than we can. Because if I'm being totally honest, I'm not necessarily qualified.
Neither one of us are qualified to give any pertinent psychological advice. And we're not trying to shoot you down, because granted, there is a lot that we don't understand about the universe that we have yet to figure out. But when you're turning to unsubstantiated claims to try to explain the natural world around you, you can get handed a lot of stuff that can seem like it makes sense, and it can offer you some sorts of consolement, but it depends on how much the truth means to you. And we're offering you places that you can turn that will give you real world advice to it, and take it with a grain of sand or whatever. I can see that you really want explanations to all this, because it just doesn't seem like anything is right, and we really feel that you should go talk to somebody that is qualified. I can hear the pain in your voice, and we do care. We want you to get this right in your head.
I fully understand what you guys are concerned of, and I just want you to know I have been to every treatment under the sun. I have looked into this myself and researched. This isn't some form of mental illness, because I know the difference between consciousness and what's real. And that's what most people don't acknowledge.
I can understand and appreciate where you're going. Would you mind if at the end of my show, I believe we're connected on Facebook, could I send you a few links to check out?
Yeah, sure, I don't mind. I actually have to go to the I don't know what the correct term is, the Hebrew Jewish church that's down the street from me. I need to get their assistance in another exorcism, because it moved on.
Certainly check out the links that he'll send you. I mean, even if it's sometimes just talking to somebody can help give you the perspective to see
Um,
what steps to take next.
I could read the document that I have about the Anunnaki pedophilia syndrome.
If I'm being honest, I'm a little hesitant on that because I'm not familiar with that at all. But if you could send me the document, I would definitely be happy to take a look at it and then talk to you about it at, at a later time. And if I could, before you get your next exorcism, possibly consider checking out some of the links. There is a lot of great help out there. I am by no means saying it's mental illness. I would never say that to somebody or even imply it.
Well,
I'm just concerned. I don't want to see other people take advantage of you, and that's kind of my concern right now.
The issue is
I don't want to see.
I know you're concerned. Yeah.
More than anything else, I want you to be okay, and I think it's important that we
completely understand.
Okay.
Somebody might be able to help you find some peace.
Well, I have already found peace is the issue. I know I seem very tragic, but I'm just trying to tell my story so you can understand.
No, of course.
Because it's all connected.
I totally understand. Would you, when this is done, as long as you're okay with it, I'm going to go ahead and send you the links. And if you could send me that document you're referring to, I'm happy to take a look at it tonight.
Yeah.
I do want to,
when we're done.
I do want to thank you for calling in, and I'm gonna go ahead and message you after the show. Is that okay?
Yeah. Did you want me to talk more?
Oh no, no, it's okay. I really appreciate you taking the time to call in.
I wanted to tell the rest because I had a lot to talk about. Supernatural, aliens, and COVID-19 because I literally almost died from it.
If we could, I would definitely invite you to come back on next week, and then we could also cover your other topics then. Would that be okay?
Mm-hmm. Is it the fact you don't want to talk because you think I'm in severe distress?
No, that's not it at all. I just each caller I try to stick to one topic, and since we got a couple other callers, I think it would be I should move on to the next caller with the next topic. But you definitely would love to talk to you again.
All right.
Thank you, Noodle. I appreciate you taking the time today.
Take care of yourself.
No, it's okay. But I will follow up with you tonight when we're done.
All right. Well, make sure you look at that document.
I absolutely will. Be safe, okay?
Yeah.
Take care.
You too.
For anyone watching, I did put the links in the description for the Secular Therapy Project and Recovering from Religion. I do have her Facebook name, so I will follow up with her after the show and get her those links. Do you want to move on to our next caller?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Trigger warning. I don't have a screener. I'm using the auto screener, so anything can get said. It looks like this is Mr. Batman. You're on with IQ and Ethan.
Yes. Hello, IQ and Ethan. How are you all doing this evening?
Good. How about yourself?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing better than I deserve because I know what I deserve and I ain't getting it. I deserve eternity in a place called hell, and I've got the gift of the Holy Spirit and the gift of forgiveness. That's called repentance. And I just wanted to say that that I can prove that the God of the Bible exists.
Great. I'd love to hear it.
Certainly. Would you agree to know anything to be true that you have to have time, space, and matter?
To know anything to be true. I apologize. I don't know what you mean by that, that you have to have time, space, and matter.
Okay. Sure. Would you agree that knowledge is a justified true belief? That is, in order to know something to be true, you have to have, again, knowledge. Knowledge is a justified true belief. Justification is a chain of evidence. It must be true, and it must be trustworthy. That's a justified true belief. It's called the correspondence theory of reality.
Yeah, it's kind of the scenic route of the old catchphrase: "If you can't show it, you don't know it." But yeah, I'll bite that one. It's pretty close.
Okay. Well, in order to know something to be true in the real world in real time, because that's what truth is. Truth is that which comports with reality. Then you need time, space, and matter. Okay. Where does time, space, and matter come from so you can know anything to be true?
I mean, I personally don't know where.
Are we getting into origins here?
Yeah. So, I mean,
yes, sir, we are.
The furthest back I'm aware of is the Big Bang. I don't know what happened to lead to that. I'm definitely not knowledgeable enough. But as far as I know, the Big Bang.
Okay. Well, the Big Bang is time, space, and matter. And I'm actually a science teacher.
Oh,
and
great.
Because time, space, and matter cannot be the cause of time, space, and matter, then you can't appeal to time, space, and matter. So something timeless, spaceless, immaterial, all-powerful, all-knowing, a loving, living, logical, lawgiver God must be the cause of time, space, and matter.
How do we know that?
I
mean, there are cyclical theories to the Big Crunch, all that stuff that we don't necessarily know, can't really outrule, and we don't know what was before the Big Bang, and that's just kind of our understanding up to a certain point. We can't really prescribe any causality before then. How do you get to there must be?
Are you familiar with the law of cause and effect?
Yeah, cause and effect, yes. At least relatively familiar with it. Go for it.
Matter had a beginning, and we know it had a beginning because of the second law of thermodynamics, which is called entropy. Everything decays over time. Everything goes from a state of order to disorder, from workable, usable energy to no workable, usable energy. It's also called thermal equilibrium. So we know that the Big Crunch doesn't work, that everything in the time, space, and matter that we observe had a beginning. So whatever has a beginning is called an effect. Every effect must have an adequate cause. The adequate cause of time, space, and matter must be timeless, spaceless, and immaterial. That's the God of the Bible.
Why must it be that, though? Like, who said that that must be it? And then how do you get to that's it to that's God?
Outruling multiple universes, and there's a few others that could potentially be.
Actually, no, sir. There's only one God. The Lord our God is one. And when you look at a lawgiver God, the God who creates, and again tells us he's going to create in advance. The Old Testament is the New Testament concealed, and the New Testament is the Old Testament revealed. When you look at the Bible in its original language, the very first word in the Bible gives us the definition of what God is going to do. It's the Bereshit, Passover prophecy.
So why, though, would I believe the Bible is true?
Because without the Bible, you couldn't know anything to be true. The God of the Bible is our lawgiver God who gives us laws, like laws of logic, laws of cause and effect, laws of thermodynamics. Where do those laws come from, and why do they not change over time?
So, I mean, here's the great thing. This is where I err on the side of saying, hey, I don't know, but I'm open to all possibilities. But I wouldn't go as far as to make an assertion that there is something specifically responsible. For example, how did you rule out the fact that another universe didn't give birth to our universe?
Because time, space, and matter cannot give birth to time, space, and matter. Again, anything that has a beginning, and time, space, and matter had a beginning, must have an adequate cause. Anything that has a beginning is known as an effect. Every effect must have an adequate cause. So a universe cannot give birth to another universe. As a matter of fact, the word universe, I'm also a teacher of English.
Okay.
Universe is a compound word. Uni means single, verse is a spoken sentence. So universe is all of the cosmos. It's everything that was created in a single spoken sentence. Whew, that'll preach.
So first and foremost, I will say this: you're one of the politest precepts I've ever met. So thank you for that.
I don't do presuppositional apologetics, sir. I teach apologetics. I'm what's called a covenantal apologist.
Okay, I apologize for confusing.
Oh, no problem, sir. They are quite similar.
Okay, well, you are very polite. So, how do you know, though, specifically that a universe didn't give birth to another universe? How did you, for example, rule that out?
Well, again, where do natural laws come from? Can you get any natural law from the physical world, like laws of gravity, magnetism, thermodynamics? These are called cosmological constants. The strong and weak nuclear force, the force of gravity, and the force of magnetism are the four major cosmological constants of our universe. They are super finely tuned to allow functionality and physicality to work in our universe the way it does. If they change at all, the physical world does not work. If they are not tuned exactly where they are, they do not work.
I wouldn't say that is finely tuned. They are tuned to what they are.
These three questions. Where do they come from? What causes, again, the law of cause and effect, what causes these laws to be in place? What causes them not to change in a universe that is constantly changing over time? And what's going to cause them to be here again tomorrow so we can enjoy this party one more time?
Well, that's just physics. You're prescribing that there is a hand finely tuning them, and it's just that's what they are. That's the tuning that just happens to be, and everything works the way it does because of everything. We wouldn't be having this conversation if they were any different. We're getting into the puddle analogy here. Is that we're not finely tuned to everything. That's just the shape of everything, and this is the result of all of those different parameters.
Okay, then what causes it? If it just happened to be that way, where do laws come from that don't change over time? What causes these laws not to change over time in a world that's constantly changing? Well, I mentioned earlier the second law of thermodynamics. The second law of thermodynamics tells us that everything is decaying over time. Everything is going from a state of order to disorder to thermal equilibrium. If you take a cup of hot steaming coffee and you put it in the middle of your coffee table and you walk away for 3 hours and then come back, what happens to the temperature of the coffee in the coffee cup?
Of course, it cools off. And, well, at least relative to what it was.
And the longer it's there, the more of thermal equilibrium it becomes. That is, there's no measurable temperature difference between the coffee in the cup and its surrounding environment. So once again, if the universe had always been here, then there would be no temperature differences between things in the universe. We see huge temperature differences between everything in the universe. That's where work comes from. Work comes from the thermal differences between things. So again, you have to ask yourself, what wound up our physical universe with the least amount of entropy so it could wind down to maximum entropy over a period of time? What causes these laws, like the laws of thermodynamics, what causes them not to change over time, and what's going to cause them to be like this again tomorrow?
So
I'm leaving that question to the astrophysicists, and I will not be referring to...
I happen to be one of those, sir.
Okay, well, this is great. The astrophysics kind of stops when you start making assumptions, though. We're not exactly sure that the universe was birthed or that it was a beginning.
Hey, Mr. Batman, we've let you speak. Please, return him the same respect and let him complete his sentence as well.
I mean, you can...
But he actually
change the states of matter.
And the false statement is that I'm assuming anything. I don't assume anything, sir. I have ultimate justification for every claim that I make.
How? So let's say we don't have an answer for how everything began. How does that get us to God did it?
Oh, well, sir, if you don't know, you know what? You can't tell me that I'm wrong. You know why? because you don't know. In order to tell me that I'm wrong, that God is the creator of all things, you would have to have an alternative. You would have to be able to say, well, you're wrong because of X. And you don't have an X. You just say, I don't know. I'm showing you that there are laws in the physical world that the physical world depends upon, not least of which are the laws of physics, like laws of chemistry. Why does water boil at 212 degrees every time based on known parameters such as humidity and barometric pressure? Why is that? Because, again, there's a loving, logical lawgiver God who put those laws in place, and he doesn't change over time. Due to the laws of cause and effect, anything that causes a law in our physical world and that law doesn't change over time, whatever caused that to be, that thing or being must not change over time. And that thing or being is a volitional being because of the first and second laws of thermodynamics together. When you have the first and second laws of thermodynamics together, that's the conservation of mass and energy and the laws of entropy. You have a personal agent who chose to act as a creator and then chose to stop his act of creation. Why do you think matter and energy cannot be created or destroyed? It can only change form because God chose to create and he chose to rest. He rested on the Sabbath. That's the seventh day. So he created in 6 literal 24-hour periods, and he rested on the 7th literal 24-hour period.
All right, Mr. Batman.
What are the laws that get you to that right there? You jump from known laws of physics to because God.
Because
what are the laws that?
Are you familiar with this term?
What was that again?
Are you familiar with the term the uniformity of nature?
Not off the top of my head. I mean, it sounds easy enough to understand, but
uniformity of nature. And again, sir, I teach this stuff, so I may be a little bit over your head, but I teach elementary school, so don't worry, I can teach you. The fact of the matter is,
Mr. Batman,
the uniformity of nature is that
Mr.
everything in the physical world works under uniform.
Okay, you've been muted. That was incredibly fucking rude. Do not talk to my co-host like that. Be polite. We have shown you nothing but respect. We've let you talk. But saying something's over his head and comparing it to preschool is juvenile and childish. And if that happens again, we're done. I'm going
to
take
avoid the condescension.
I do not like muting people, and I do not like dropping people. I have shown you respect. We expect the same in return. You are now off mute.
I equated it to elementary school, sir. He was the one who said I was talking over his head. I was simply agreeing with him.
It wasn't that.
If we're talking about the uniformity of
nature, was about something that I didn't understand. Hold on for 1 second, man. It wasn't that you're talking about something that I didn't quite understand. It's how you phrased it. It was a little condescending. And we're not here to talk to each other like that.
And you said you didn't know. So if you don't know, then you probably should take some notes and learn.
All right.
Because I can help you.
Sorry, IQ. I have a lot of patience, but I'm done with that, dude. I'm sorry to the audience that I had to drop somebody. I don't like doing that. I want to be an open, welcome platform to everybody, but I'm not going to tolerate my co-host being disrespected. You want to come at me? Fine. But my co-host will not be disrespected on my channel ever.
Apparently, you might be unfamiliar with Mr. Batman.
I am unfamiliar with Mr. Batman. He seemed incredibly polite at first, but yeah, I guess not.
I've heard him on a few occasions, and well, I mean, I wouldn't really call him famous, but he's known in the community, and I've heard him on a few occasions talking with Matt Dillahunty with the same things. And I'm not quite as brilliant as Matt, and but it's the same arguments, and there's a big mix right there of pulling out real science and then jumping straight to assertions on causality and causation.
And that's what he was doing. He just kept making assertions and assumptions about the beginning of the universe, and you just can't do that. Now, a lot of this science may fly over my head, but I think I'm pretty good at detecting bullshit. And that's all I heard was just there has to be this uncaused causation crap for the beginning of the universe, which is God. No. Demonstrate there is a God first. That's where I stand.
They seem to be really good on, pointing out laws and investigations and the scientific method, and he seemed to have somewhat of appreciation for that, right up to the point where he's prescribing causality. So,
I'll still say
maybe that's what he should take notes on.
or quite possibly a course on critical thinking and logical fallacies. In fact, maybe he should pick up Dave Worley's book, Fantastic Fallacies and Where to Find Them.
Found him.
Yeah. We hit the lottery with him.
That was fantastic.
I'll still say this: my favorite pre-sup is still Joel Sedekase. He's one of the polite ones, I think. Anyways,
we like the polite ones.
Yeah, we do. We got 2 callers. This is one of my favorites. Robin?
Hello, how you guys doing?
Good. How are you, Robin?
Just fabulous. Thanks for asking.
You're on with IQ and obviously Ethan.
Hello, Robin.
Hello. I thought that we would change subject just a little bit from that lovely conversation and talk about some history that has alluded to the possibility of aliens being involved in our civilization over the past several thousand years.
Aliens, yes! All right. Love it.
For a second, I thought you said Aryans. I'm like, oh, shit. One of those conversations.
No, we don't need another one of those. We have a president for that already.
Zing.
That was good. Never mind.
You got a cool point for that one. All right, moving on.
So yeah, there's so many things that we could talk about, but I thought I would talk about something close to home, which is some of the Native American histories that have stories passed down from generations about different beings that have been involved in their creation, or creation stories anyways, and also in parts of their civilization.
Ooh, okay. So
I want to talk about the Hopi people who are from where I live now in Tucson. They're in northern Arizona, and they've been there for a very long time. And their creation story talks about the ant people. Their history talks about how the ant people came in at certain periods of global destruction, actually. Let's see, it was in their third age where they have I think they have 6 different ages. And in the third age, there was, some cataclysmic things. And according to their histories, the ant people brought them into caverns underneath the earth where they survived for a period of time when the surface of the earth was not quite so vibrant and healthy. And that is one of very many Native American stories that talk about actually being brought from the skies, including to Shiprock, New Mexico, which is where the Navajo Nation is. And they have this story with their creation story that the giant bird came down from the sky and brought them here, which is a very telling turn of phrase. So I want to start with that and see what your reactions are.
Native American, creation stories and all that, they're fascinating. I love them. I mean, I'm part Cherokee, Blackfoot, and Sioux, so there's a little bit of heritage back there that pins my interest a little bit. But they're always very colorful, and there's always they're dramatic stories, and they're not like page turning, falling asleep in the pew type stories. There's always a lot of action happening with them. So I'm digging it. Go for it.
Yep. Awesome. So hang on, actually, I'm going to bring this up. And Ethan, while I'm bringing up some information, do you have anything that sparks your interest specifically about what I've said already that you want to talk about?
No, I when you just say aliens are embedded in our society, do you mean like you think they're currently walking around? Like, where are you going with this? So, for example, there are some people who think that George Bush is a lizard. I obviously don't. Is that where you're going with that, or where are you at?
Yeah. You know what's funny about the lizard comment is, I'll answer your question and then move on to the lizard thing, I guess. Yes, they have been, okay. There were points in our history where they were legit just walking around, being a part of building cities, Egypt, Sumer, all sorts of things like that. And then they took their hands off of humanity when it started growing in knowledge and size and whatnot. So with all of the beliefs that I've got, I do believe that there are tons of them on the planet, a lot of them underground. But there's also, when you look deep into different beings, it brings you into this spiritual kind of journey too, because they don't all exist in the third dimensional realm. There's different frequencies that they exist on. So they could be like right above your building and you wouldn't see them because they're vibrating on a frequency that we're not vibrating on and able to experience or see without meditation and other things, or without them
mean,
deciding
like vibrating at a different frequency? And how do we know they're vibrating at a different frequency?
Trying to wrap your head around fourth dimensional beings is difficult.
It really is, and honestly, I'm not like a fucking master in it, but what I've learned is that through meditation, and this is what it always comes down to, which is why I keep urging Ethan whenever I can to try a meditative practice so you can experience it yourself. But through meditation, you connect to these different energies. And this is why I always comment when people come and talk about God, about how God is within all of us. It is absolutely everywhere, and it's consciousness. It all ties into aliens too, because through meditation, you can experience these different vibrations. You actually get information. Like, I know it sounds kind of crazy, but you get information that was not in your head before, and different vibrations and feelings that you wouldn't, it's so hard to describe without experiencing it. So I hope one day you both take an opportunity to get into some type of a meditative practice so you can.
I can understand what you're talking about and why it's so hard to describe it. I had a intense history with psychedelics, and I've had experiences that borderline the supernatural. At least inside my head. And I've been through all of that. And I've had experiences where there's things you can't really explain, but that I can't take any jumps after that when I know that there's things that go on inside my head that are caused by something. But I understand the experience that you're talking about. But where we get to with that is, if this can be same sort of experience can be chemically induced, is there just something in the brain that produces these experiences, and you can elicit it in a number of different ways, but it doesn't really point towards anything that is quite supernatural?
I think that is totally fair. And I also think that you would have a little insight with some meditation into, like, I think with your experiences with psychedelics, you can kind of grasp the idea. For sure, I've done psychedelics too, so I understand.
I will say this.
all the incredible things that can happen in your mind and whatnot with it. But I would definitely want to just encourage meditation for y'all to just check it out. But what we can talk about that you can appreciate more would be the actual histories and like the stories of civilizations that you can actually, look back and, read the histories instead of like, yeah, okay, I guess if I meditate, maybe I'll find out.
I honestly, I would actually like to try and meditate more. I struggle to quiet my mind. So separately, like Robin, if we'll talk after the show, if you can any tips you can give me, because I need to find a way to get my mind to slow down because it doesn't want to. Now, when I did try shrooms, I understand, like, several people describe this connectivity you feel,
Yes.
and I understand that, because you're almost it's a hard feeling to describe. But what I don't get is why people will take drugs and then say that gets them to some type of either supernatural or other dimension, because to me it's just chemicals firing in your brain, and we have no evidence that anything exists outside of that, or that there's consciousness
I agree with
outside of the
that.
brain.
And I think that scientific studies, and we talked about this in our first conversation when I was on video with you, that science into energy, it's expanding every week, really is. And with learning more about energy and how energy is connected beyond just like the energy in my finger and the energy in the tree across from me, science is getting closer to actually proving connections between that, but we're not there yet. And I'm not educated enough to talk to you about it, but I think that the thoughts that you have in your mind and those experiences, whether you have them with drugs or you have them naturally, it's all kind of a part of the same range of experiences. And it kind of does all tie into this spiritual stuff I talk about and into aliens and all that fun stuff.
I really hope aliens actually exist, or sorry, I hope we find them in my lifetime. Like, here's where I stand on it.
You will. It's going to be happening, and that's why. Have you noticed disclosure has been happening? We talked about this last time. Have you looked up any of the videos released by NASA or the Air Force of their pilots coming across UFOs?
No,
I've seen several.
I mean, so here's where I'm at. When they release footage of UFOs, in my mind, I don't want to say I assume, but I believe it is something, it could be another country's military. Like, we don't know. So I don't jump to it being aliens. I wait till we can actually demonstrate that, hey, this unidentified flying object is actually an alien ship, because a lot of times when people hear UFO, they think that means aliens, and all UFO means is unidentified flying object. So it could really be, anything natural, or sorry, anything
I just
within.
want you to be in mind to the fact that these videos are going to be coming out more and more. As of right now, it's like a soft opening to allowing people to realize this. I mean, this is an actual disclosure event, because it's been like systematically happening over the past year or so. But even if you don't believe that it's alien right now, that's totally fine. Just keep your eyes open and see if, like, when you start noticing that this is going to be the more and more videos, more and more experiences, more and more people videotaping and experiencing these things. And to answer your question, the entire planet is going to know about aliens over the next 5 to 10 years. I mean, it's an undeniable road that we're on already.
It would be nice to be able to put all of the conspiracy to bed. So if that is the case, I really do hope that is true. See, there is a lot of stuff that we don't understand, and and I've touched on this already about the universe. The thing is, we create a lot of explanations for things that we don't understand because we really want to understand everything.
Right.
And there's a lot of pop culture around aliens, and I really don't want to discredit you or belittle you in any ways, with all this, because I'm really open to a lot of this stuff. But there is a absolute brick wall when it comes to just accepting it because it sounds good, or there's a little bit of supporting evidence. It's got to be concrete. If you tell me that you've got a cat in your garage, I'm going to say, cool, make sure you feed him. You tell me you got a dragon in your garage, I'm going to be a little more hesitant to take your word on it, because I've never seen a dragon, unless you go, it's a kimono dragon. Damn it.
And I think that's the main point, in fact, is that more people need to have these experiences, because for a scientific-minded person, you could have 100 people come up to you and say, I saw a fucking UFO, man. Like, this was not human. It moved 5,000 miles an hour. It jumped into a different dimension and back in, like, whatever. You had 100 people come up and tell you that. You're really not going to believe it until you see it yourself. And I've had three experiences.
That's one thing I know,
so
is that I cannot trust my brain
right.
when it comes to things that I just see. I've seen some shit that I know isn't there. And I know my brain interprets things certainly, you know, in certain ways, that what I want to see or what I thought I saw or what it could be, and your brain just kind of inputs the missing information.
Okay. Are you ready? Are you ready for another UFO experience that I have not yet shared with you?
Sure, please.
Okay, let me tell you this one. This is my first one ever,
okay.
And it was so crazy that I had the cognitive dissonance while it was happening, where as soon as the experience was done, I questioned if it had even happened because it was so wild. Okay, this was in Chicago. This is in the west suburbs of Chicago at a bar in Lombard called, for God, what is it? I don't know. It's at a ski hill at an apartment complex in Lombard. Okay. Two weeks before this, a friend of mine had told me.
Sorry, Robin. Are you talking about Four Lakes?
Yes. Okay. I think it's Four Lakes. That's right. It's bar at Four Lakes.
Yes. Okay. And do you know the date of this by chance?
This was in 2008, I believe.
And do you perhaps know the month by chance?
No.
Okay.
I know the time of year was like spring.
Okay.
Like spring, maybe early summer.
All right. Go ahead.
So
it might have been Ethan dancing. He's got some moves.
Go ahead.
Sorry, it was just joke time for a second. It might have been Ethan dancing because he's got some moves for you. It might want to get you to rethink reality.
Robin has seen me dance.
Anyway, continue. Sorry to interrupt.
And I love it. Okay, so I had just heard a story from my friend who a couple weeks ago was on his balcony facing west, and he was with his roommate. This was at dusk, and also in like the northwest suburbs of Chicago. And they had seen a really, really, really bright light going across the sky. And he was looking at it for a while because he's like, that's not an airplane. It's not a helicopter. I don't know what the hell that is. And he,
Oh, sorry. A Superman joke. Please continue.
It's a bird, it's a plane, it's an alien.
We got jokes.
So it was going across the sky. It was really bright. It was moving in a way that he just couldn't take his eyes off of it. And he looked at his friend, his roommate, I mean, and said, like, is this weird to you too? And as soon as he said that, the light went, it like changed direction in the way it was moving and went off at about 4 times the speed that it had been cruising across the sky for the previous like 3 or 4 minutes. So it just disappeared after he said something to his friend. So this thought was kind of on my mind, to be fair. So I go to Four Lakes, and I'm too young to go in the bar. And so I was sitting on the ski hill. It was dusk. It was getting pretty freaking dark.
Okay.
And the way that the tree line is, when you're sitting like in the middle of the ski hill, there's, you know, trees to the left and there's trees to the right. And I was high up enough that there were no trees in the foreground for me. And I'm looking up at the sky, and it's quite dark, but it's not black yet. And I see this mass, and I say it like that because it wasn't like metal. Okay. It seemed like it was almost like if I, you know, threw a ball, it might go through it, but it was this huge black mass of a thing. And I'm like, oh my God, am I seriously having an experience right now? And I thought to myself, you know, when my friend said something to his roommate, the UFO, if it were that, seemed to react. And so I'm like, maybe there's some type of like telepathic connection or energy reading that they're able to do. So I think to this mass that I see coming across the sky, and I want to mention, this isn't far in the distance. Like, this thing is not miles away. This thing is, I don't know elevation very well. I don't know how I would say elevation, maybe a third of the Sears Tower. How about that?
Like that's the
high.
The height.
And,
okay. Okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, the height was maybe like a third of the way up the Sears Tower. It wasn't super, super high up. And it was, God, not more than maybe 2 football fields in front of me. So I have this thought in my head, you know, maybe they have a telepathic connection. And so I thought to myself, or to the mass in front of me, if you are a different being, show me. And 5 lights that were this yellow orangey kind of color lit up along what I would say is like the kind of the outside ring of it. And it blew my mind because these 5 lights, it was only like almost like a half of an ellipsis that I could see. So like there was more to this thing in the tree line that I wasn't able to see. And these lights fucking turned on, not insanely bright, but I mean, they were there. And I almost pissed myself and I got a little nervous. And then the lights turned off and I continued to see this black mass kind of like so slowly continuing to kind of like move from left to right in my vision. But then it got so dark at this point that I couldn't tell if it was there anymore because it wasn't solid. It wasn't like a fucking shiny silver thing. It was this malleable kind of darkness. It was crazy. It was crazy.
So what do you, so my first question is, what do you think it was?
I can't, I
She's
mean,
not
the only
saying it's
thing
aliens.
I think that it was, I've never seen anything like it. I've never felt anything like feeling like this fucking thing or whatever was in this thing was communicating with me. I can't explain to you how intense that was, but the only thing that makes sense in my mind is that this is some type of a ship, and that it's not entirely in our dimension, which is why it's not an entirely solid seeming object, but it was still able to react or respond to my request, which was even more mind-blowing.
So are you open to the possibility that this could be a ship, you know, or a military vessel that perhaps you've just never seen before, and you were shocked by it, which puts you into a heightened emotional state, and you know, possibly caused you to, you know, get those feelings you were talking about before we jump to it being, you know, aliens?
I
If it
can
had been
interject
a
real quick.
normal material, if it had been a material of any type that I would have recognized, then yes, that would have been my first thought, is what military ship is surveying us right now? But this wasn't a material. I mean, it wasn't even material. It was something else.
Do you think,
and
let me ask you
beyond
this.
the fact that it was weird looking, for it to respond to me, that's on a whole other level.
Do you think, or how many out of all the, you know, tens of thousands of different types of military vehicles that are out there, or aircrafts out there, what percentage of them have you you know, researched and have seen with your own eyes? If you had to just guess.
I've seen a few, but I'm definitely not an expert in it.
Oh.
But this is where I'm going to go back to my response that you need to see this for yourself to understand it. And on that note, I suggested this movie before, and I really want you to look into this because it actually goes into all of these different UFO sightings that are all up on the internet that were caused by these meditative groups who are looking to connect with these different beings. So when you guys get a chance, it's worth every second, watch Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, which is not to be confused with the movie from the 80s, The Close Encounters of the Fourth Kind.
Let me ask you this, Robin. Let's say you and I are outside and a bird lands on a branch nearby, and I look at it and tell it to fly away, and then it does. Does that mean it listened to me? Or would you say that that was most likely a coincidence?
If it was a crow, probably yes, because those little bastards are smart.
Thanks, IQ.
I honestly accept the possibility of either.
Right, but which would you lean is more likely? That it's a coincidence or that the bird actually comprehended what I said and flew away?
It's more than likely that that would be a coincidence.
Oh,
so a follow-up question on that.
That's
so, yeah.
That's where
Explaining the things that we see have a big part to do with what we allow ourselves to be convinced of. Where you, like, so say you're convinced of a certain thing, like just as a topic, you're convinced of a certain topic, like, yes, this is very probable, and I really think this is it, and I hope I see some of it someday. Then you see something someday that you can't quite explain, and you're like, that was that. You know, if you stay skeptical and you stay on the fence about something, I really don't think this is true, but I hope something comes to light of it someday. You're more likely not to ever see that. It's because we allow ourselves to input this information when we see something that we don't have an explanation for. So were you convinced of the supernatural and any sort of paranormal or aliens, anything like that? Were you convinced of that before you ever had your first sighting?
Before I had my first, that one that I just explained to you, I had the idea in my head, but I was not convinced at that point. But I am convinced now, so I'm not going to pretend. I am very convinced. And I just want to pose kind of the same question to you. If you, actually, did you, I know Ethan remembers this, but to you, my friend, did you hear my first story when I had called in last time?
I believe so.
Where
if I can quote it or
mountain
anything, I'm gonna give you a no, just because there's a lot of stuff that goes on in my life. And you know, I'm like Dora, so you know, my memory isn't all that great. I have to take a lot of notes. But anyway, please continue.
Instead of telling the story, I'm just going to bring two of the pieces from it and ask how you would or what you would think if you saw this. So if you saw a light in the sky that had been hovering there for approximately 30-ish minutes at this point, that looked unsimilar to anything you've seen before in its quality, the fact that it's noiseless, and you just get kind of a interesting feeling with it. And then you see it move at a speed that you might clock at like 1,500 miles an hour. And if you were to describe the movement of this object, it was not like it was pushed by a rocket. It was like it slipped into place, is the only way that I can describe it. If you saw that with your eyes, and then after that, where you're like, what the fuck just happened? You see two of these lights slowly move up in the sky and then disappear in a giant white flash of light, one after the other, not to be seen again for the rest of the night. What is the first logical place that your mind goes to explain that?
To be completely honest, and not to poke fun at you, I'm gonna check my drink.
And that's exactly why I'm so passionate about this, is because it was such an incredible experience. And these are the types of movements that you see in the videos that NASA and the Air Force have been releasing, where these ships are being clocked, or these lights or these unidentified objects are being clocked at 1,500 miles an hour, and they're flying and flying and flying, and then poof, they go up into the sky. You see it go through the radar, and bam, it's gone in literally like a half of a second.
So let me ask you this.
This is why I'm convinced.
Why does speed and not knowing what it is automatically equate to alien life, as opposed to saying, hey, I don't know what this is, but I'm going to keep looking into it in the meantime?
And that is what I've been doing. And I think there's a possibility that the military has things that they don't share with us. Obviously, that's a duh moment.
I hope they have technologies that they're not sharing with us.
But the intensity of these experiences, the way that these things move, the quality of the light, or in the experience I shared with you guys earlier today, I don't know, the weird ass type of energy that thing was, but it wasn't a normal material. You see all these things and you start to realize that in this universe where there are not only millions of galaxies, but quadrillions of stars and opportunity for life, that it makes much more sense that there is life existing all over this universe that began way before we did and know way more than we do about physics, about science, about the universe, about time and space. And they figured that out a long time ago, and they are here. And I think that that makes way more sense than there being a God that, poof, made a planet, made all these creatures, and said goodbye. And these lights in the sky are just technology that, though it seems like it's hundreds of years beyond us, is somehow existing with us right now. It makes more sense to me. It's the only logical conclusion in my mind, honestly.
Let me address this real quickly, and then we got to move on to our next caller. But
yeah,
I agree that alien life makes more sense and is more plausible than a supernatural explanation like God. However, until such a time, just like with all supernatural claims, until I see these aliens, or until the U.S., the military, the government, someone comes out and says, yes, there is alien life, we've been visited, or, you know, these ships are definitely not earthly, then I would be open to that. But until that happens,
and they have, they have though. That's kind of the thing.
That's a big claim.
I think people are still dissonant about the things that they see nowadays, that they're pushing it off. So that's why I want to encourage again that you look at Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. Both of you, please do. Anybody listening, please do. And it will give you insight and also show you some places where you can see that not only has the Canadian Prime Minister come out and explained, yes, there are beings, but so have the Russians, so have the Chinese, and our government is starting to do it now too. And I just don't believe you've seen it yet. So I would love to encourage you to do that, because it is actually being disclosed around the world right now. And it's easy to find with Google.
Sounds interesting enough.
Any of those, but if you could send me any of the links from these other governments saying there's alien life, and I will definitely look at those. So
there's a lot that goes into the Drake equation, and you know, it sounds legit, but I can't base my beliefs, or at least my facts, on sounds legit. I will hold it as a belief, or at least as an interest, until I can have, you know, I can eliminate all other possibilities. And that's when it becomes fact.
I'll show you guys some links, and I hope that you guys will come to see it a little bit more. But if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I'll show you what I've got, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your night. Thanks for having me.
No, thanks for calling, Robin. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
It was awesome. Thanks for calling.
Have a great day, guys.
You too.
You too.
IQ, do you have to rush out of here, or do you have a few more minutes?
Oh, I am good.
Okay, cool, because we've got two more callers. I'd like to try and get to them as quickly as possible. I don't know who this next caller is. It says they want to talk about Catholic tradition. Why is it? There we go.
No, my name is, I go by Catholic traditionalist.
Oh, okay. You're on with IQ and Ethan. How are you?
Oh, pretty good. There might be a little bit of a lag because I'm calling through the internet.
Oh, you sound great. But if you could, we don't have a lot of time left. So if you could go, fairly quickly with what you were calling about.
Sure. I could get you guys to prove that what Mr. Batman was saying is absolutely true, just by asking you a few questions.
You're going to prove that what Mr. Batman said earlier today, that God is real?
No, you are. No,
I
you will. I can ask you a few questions, and by the answers you give, you'll prove that what Mr. Batman was saying is true.
Okay, if you can make it quick, go ahead.
Okay, sure. Is logic a conceptualization of the mind?
Is logic a conceptualization of the mind? Okay, whether my answer is yes
Correct.
or no, how would that get to a God?
Well, if you go ahead and answer my questions, you can just give a yes or no. We'll get to it quickly, and you'll see how it gets to God. So is logic, do you know that logic is a conceptualization of the mind?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So someone said yes, great. Okay. So do you know that logic exists outside of your mind?
As far as objectively, like other people experience logic as I do? Or is it in like an actually tangible thing?
Like, are we talking
any
about
logic whatsoever with regards to all logical laws and principles, any of that? With regards to truth itself, anything of what you experience, do you know that any of it exists outside of your mind?
do I know if
Outside of my mind?
No.
Yes, but not outside of the mind.
Okay. So you know that it exists outside of your mind. Well, how is it that you know this if you don't have a mind to know it? You just stated something that's a contradiction.
Okay.
It's impossible for you to know that logic exists out of your own mind.
Okay. Whether it
Oh
exists
no,
out of
I get what he's saying. No, you've got me. He's right. I do not know that. I believe that logic exists outside of my mind. So
right.
You've corrected me, sir. Thank you.
So, right. So you assume that it exists, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We'll go with we'll go with assume. Yeah.
Do you assume you're speaking to me over the phone and that you're live streaming on YouTube right now?
I mean, I wouldn't say it's an assumption. I would say it was based on a rational understanding of, and the evidence in front of me. Like
Here's what he's getting at. It's we're assuming everything because we don't actually know. I mean, are we getting to solipsism here? Is that where you're ending up at?
Yeah. So, right. So rationality and reasoning is using logic in your mind. Okay. So you are assuming that you're speaking to me by the phone right now, right?
Sure.
Yes, and I hope that assumption is correct because I will hate myself if that's not true.
Okay. So then by the answers you've given me, you've just admitted that Mr. Batman is correct, that God does exist. No. And let me explain why. You've admitted that you can only know
I'm sorry.
that logic is only a conceptualized. Okay, do you want me to explain or you want me to, I'm trying to explain to you why it is that you just...
To be honest, no, man.
Neither.
But I mean, I will be cordial, go ahead, finish. I mean, it's not my show. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm not trying to be an asshole. Sorry. Go ahead.
You went ahead and you cut him off because you said he was being disrespectful to you, and are you being disrespectful to me? I mean, you asked me to explain. I'm trying to explain to you. Do you want me to explain or not? Do you want your viewers to hear my explanation, or you just want to hide what the theist has to say because you can't refute what the theist has to say?
All right, look, man. If we're gonna play that game, I'm not biting. We're here to talk now. You made an assumption or assertion that we both proved Mr. Batman's claim that God exists, which is categorically false. But please explain how we proved that.
Well, I would love to, but when I was trying to explain it, you guys were interrupting me. I don't know what you guys were saying, but you kept interrupting me.
Go ahead, make it quick.
So please don't interrupt me. I'm going to try to get it out for your viewers, okay? So your viewers can hear and you can hear. You've admitted, it's on video. Everyone can go back and see it and play it. you admitted that you can only know that logic is a conceptualization of the mind, and that you cannot know that logic is outside of your mind. So you only assume there's something outside of your mind, but you cannot know that logic is outside of your mind. So if what you're assuming is true, that logic exists, what you're assuming to be true is that logic exists, even though you don't know it, because you only know that logic is a conceptualization of the mind, then all we can know, because we all have minds, is that logic is only a conceptualization of the mind. Therefore, the logic that you think you're experiencing is from a mind that actually sustains and actualized what is those laws that we experience. And that mind is the mind of God.
Okay, so again, you went in this gigantic explanation, which I don't know if you're a precept, but people who typically use presuppositionals only make these assertions. So you went ahead and just said, hey, it only exists because of God.
No, you said it. No, you did.
No,
I didn't
did
say
not.
it. You did.
No, I did not.
Yeah, by your answers, you've admitted it by your answers.
Okay, I'm sorry. I try and be respectful, but this is ridiculous. Neither of us admitted that there was a God. Come on.
No, he's saying we admitted that we cannot know that logic exists outside of our mind, and that
you would have to admit. Yeah, because of your answers, you would have to admit that God exists. There's no way to get out of it. You boxed
no, I don't.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, and I apologize that I'm laughing right now, but I'm only laughing because you're telling me what I admitted and what I believe, and that's not true. Demonstrate there is a God for me.
No, because you say that.
Kind of getting into solipsism there, but I'm kind of with you right up until the point where you say, and that's the mind of God.
Right.
Demonstrate that there's a God there, and we can try to match those things up. But really, up until that point, it's just a logic puzzle. And then you insert God at the end.
Because it's either your mind, or it's the mind of God. It can't be any other mind.
Says who?
So therefore, you're left with two conclusions. Either your mind is the cause of the galaxies, the stars, the planets, all the atoms in the universe, everything that is, or it's God. Because you can't say that it's any other mind. It would have to be either a mind that actualized and sustained the galaxies, the planets, the universe itself, or it's your own mind, because your own mind is the mind that's experiencing it. You're only left with those two conclusions. So which one are you going to take? The solipsism approach, or
you're
belief
just
in God,
making
which is the
assumptions.
truth?
You don't get to do that. That's not how it works. I mean, I could sit here and say everything is
give me an alternative.
Okay, the universe creating pixies, a spaghetti monster, a ancient alien civilization. There's three other possible.
Okay, none of that is in response to the logic argument. Yeah, none of that is in response to the logic argument. Okay?
Doesn't get
you
to
could
a
say
God.
The spaghetti monster. You could say anything. None of that is in regards to the argument with regards to logic and the answers that you gave me.
Your logic didn't get to God.
You
can say it boxed us in, but
it's just as prescriptive as just saying, like, okay, all this stuff that's going on, that's God. No, it's flying spaghetti monster, or it's my toaster is actually a sentient being. Like, I mean, you can just assume anything.
You yourselves admitted that it is a mind that is responsible for logic. There's no way to escape it. You yourselves admitted it.
And who said this mind was God? And how do you demonstrate
that? Do you want
to
take back? Do you guys want to backpedal and take back what you said earlier?
Demonstrate that there's a God.
I'm not taking back anything about how, my mind experiences logic. And yes, I assume that logic happens in other minds that I do believe are around me. No, I do not assume that logic exists as a thing outside of any particular person's mind, because it's just our understanding, how we interact with the universe, how we think. And just to say that this, okay, since that, the logic is there and it can only be in a mind, and the universe exists, it has to be created by a mind. We can't really get there with that. I can understand things. I can think about things, but I'm not going to backpedal on that.
Because you
Logic
admitted
just
that
exists in my
logic is only
mind.
conceptualized.
Okay, you have been muted.
It's
I really
conceptualized.
I don't. Okay, for the people watching, I don't like muting people. I want to avoid it at all costs. I don't want to hang up on people. But if you're going to sit there and try and interrupt or talk over my co-host, I'm going to do that. You have to let him finish. And I know you get upset when you get off your script. I'm sorry. Demonstrate.
Because he's still talking.
He probably is still talking. So I'm going to unmute you. And in 10 to 20 seconds, demonstrate there's a God, and we can continue the conversation. You're back on.
Yeah, no, I wasn't talking. Yeah, I wasn't talking while I was muted. But anyway, yeah, as I said before, you guys gave the proof by claiming that logic is only a conceptualization of the mind, and that you do not know that logic exists outside of the mind.
Last
Therefore,
chance.
whatever you're
Demonstrate
experiencing,
a
which
God.
hold on, you told me you were going to give me the time to go ahead and explain,
but
and now
you're
you're
just
going
going
to cut
back
me
over
off.
your script.
This shows
Yes,
the
I'm going to
bad
cut
will,
you off.
dishonesty of the atheistic community, because you have no God, you have no moral principles, and because you have no moral principles, then no.
Okay, you're done.
No, hold the fuck up, dude. No,
not-
seriously. You're going to tell me I have no moral principles? No, fuck that and fuck you. Now, if you want to call into this show and you want to talk about something that we can joke about, something that, you know, you had an experience and all this, and we can talk about it. And if you've got a problem, if I see a problem, if I ran into you in the street and you are sad, if you call in here and you've got a problem, your wife's cheating on you or you're depressed, I'm going to talk to you and I'm going to help you because you're a fucking human being. I don't care what you believe. I don't care what the hell's going on. But don't call up here with these logic parlor tricks and these gotcha moments and expect us to be respectful the whole fucking time, especially when you're going to disrespect us. Fuck that. You are not going to get respect that way, sir.
IQ took the words right out of my mouth. And for those watching, if you haven't noticed, we've been absolutely respectful to every caller up until this point. And I'm sorry, I am absolutely not going to have my morals questioned by someone like you who typically oppresses people I stand on the side with, like the LGBTQI community. Do not question my morals at all. That's bullshit. You don't know who I am. And I'm sorry, somebody coming at me with the Bible has no right to question my morals when God has done absolutely horrendous things. IQ, well said. Now, if we could get to our last caller, and ideally a more pleasant one, as I know this person, and she is pleasant. Is it Cheyenne, or I don't want to say your name wrong, sorry. Cheyenne?
It's Cheyenne.
Hey,
Yeah.
sorry about that last caller. Like, normally it doesn't get like that.
Oh, no, you're good.
How are you doing? You're on with IQ and Ethan.
I'm doing pretty good. I mean, this is some spooky stuff. So, I mean, you guys might want to be ready for this.
All right, what do you got for us?
I mean, I lived in this old apartment. It was up in Oshkosh. It was my first apartment. I had an ex. He had 3 daughters. I had my son. And I put his daughters in this one room. And they all shared their bedroom because that's what they are used to. They all ended up sleeping in like a kid pile anyway. So I just allowed it. And the girls used to always come up to me and tell me that Shadow Man would talk to them from the closet. And I was just like, okay, well, we have a lot of cats. So they're probably just hearing bumping around, and they're all under 10 years old. So it's probably an imaginary friend. And I thought that way until me and my ex split up, and I ended up moving my best friend at the time into that room. And I mean, there had been times where she had told me that she had had something attached to her. Like she's devout, like Wiccan. Her whole family is Wiccan. She was stillborn, but they got her to like breathe again. So she's always felt like there's been something attached to her since birth. I didn't have a bed at this point. I was sleeping on couches. My ex took the bed. So there was one night where she was sleeping over at her boyfriend's house. And she let me go in her room to sleep. So I slept on her bed. And as I was trying to sleep, I kept hearing really heavy footsteps pacing back and forth outside the door.
Okay.
And I opened the door, and I was really mad because at first I thought that my ex was in the house, and I was like, get out of my house. And when he was not there, I looked in every bedroom. I looked throughout every single area in this house. I was the only person there. All the doors were locked. There were no way that cats could make that sound. And I went back in the bedroom. I locked the door. I laid in the bed, put the covers over my head, put my headphones in, turned some music on until the next morning. I woke up. My best friend came back with her boyfriend, and I start telling her what happened. And as I'm telling her, my stomach starts to burn, like literally burn. And
Like
I lifted up my
inside, outside,
shirt,
or
and there was
like on
yeah,
your
I'm outside.
No, sorry. I mean, like when you say it started to burn, are you talking about like your skin started to burn, or inside your stomach it started to burn, like acid reflux type burning?
The outside.
Okay, sorry.
Like it felt like something scratched me. And I lifted my shirt, and sure shit, there was a big scratch mark. At this point, I was fostering for the Humane Society, so I had like 9 cats in my house. And my first thought is, okay,
9?
one of the cats got me, and I didn't notice it. Yeah, I had a litter at that point. I was fostering a mom and her kittens, and I had my original kitties. But the way that this was formed, it was like a hand. And like, I didn't notice anything about it until Kai looked at me, and she was like, Cheyenne, what cat could do that? And I just looked up at her, and I had goosebumps, like my blood went cold. And I looked at it again, and there was no way that came from any of my cats at that point. Like that was a full on scratch. And she's Wiccan. So she pulled out her pendulum, and for her, like hers is jade. And she starts like asking it questions and shit. And it starts moving into directions. Like she asked it if it was the thing that was attached to her, and it said yes. And she asked it if it scratched me, and it said yes. And at that point, I just looked at her, and I'm like, you know what? I'm calling Takara. She was my son's godmother. She still is.
Mm-hmm.
And she's Native American. I think it's her grandmother. She lives up in Alaska, and she grows sage up there. So she gets like all this like really good high quality sage with like blessed string that binds it. And we had her come over, and she saged my apartment. Like we started off in the kids' room, and we saged Xander and my son, and we ended up saging all the cats. We saged like the whole living area, and everything was going well. The smoke wasn't pulling to anything until we hit that bedroom. And sure shit, that smoke pooled in that closet. Like it pulled right to it, and it stayed there for a long time, up until it like hovered over and it stayed in Kai's bed. And at that point, the sage was gone. So like it just hovered right next to where Kai's head would be when she slept.
So what makes you think, it is, I guess, why are you so convinced it's something supernatural and not possibly, and there couldn't be a natural explanation? Like, what if your cat did do it, and you just didn't feel it when it happened, or maybe you scraped it against something?
It was just the way it happened. Like I was recounting everything, and as I'm recounting it, that's when I started to feel the pain. Like I didn't do anything that would have upset that area, so there was no reason that there should have just been a spike of pain there. And I know what I heard. Like, I'm sorry, it's really cold out here. But like it was footsteps, like a man's footsteps. And then afterwards, like there were times where I would be around her, and there would just be really crazy, weird things that would happen. Like she would get like these weird calls where all you would hear is static. And then there would be a voice suddenly through the static saying really creepy shit. Like one time it said, "I'm going to get you." And like we were in the bathroom together because like girls do everything together, and we're kind of weird. Like one of us would be on the toilet, the other one would be doing our makeup, and that was normal for our household. But like it was like literally one of those moments where that happened and we just looked at each other like, and after I moved out, like all of it stopped. Like there was nothing in the house that night that could have explained those footsteps.
I guess
Like it literally nailed
Thermal
footsteps
expansion?
outside the door.
Was it cold outside when that happened?
I mean, it was winter, but there were no trees or anything around my
Not
house.
trees. That's thermal expansion. Is it an older house? Is there a lot of woodwork? Possibly even
Yeah, I
plaster
guess
wall.
it's old.
Because there's a lot of creaking that can happen when it's cold outside, and the draft spaces in between the floors and the walls and stuff can become cooler, and furnace kicks in, and then all of a sudden the outside of the floor becomes slightly warmer. You get a little bit of thermal expansion. With older wood, you get a lot of creaking and stuff like that that happens when this thermal expansion kicks in, because you have the hot and the cold and everything's trying to flex and contract all at the same time. Then you have old nails and old wood fibers that can sound like footsteps. Not to say that that's what you heard, but that's the possible explanation. Particularly in the wintertime, because in the summer, everything's already kind of warm and your AC isn't going to really kick in that thermal expansion very much.
I mean, my house, I'm weird, so I always keep my house at like 90
Me too.
degrees. I'm anemic, so
Not-
I'm always exceptionally cold.
I know your pain.
And
Sorry.
Oh no, you're fine. I had downstairs neighbors too at that point, but like, so like heat rises. So like, wouldn't that technically like account for like the expansion?
Possible, but I'm just throwing out some possibly things. You know, it's there's certain elements in our environment that can create certain stimulus, and on top of psychosomatic response, you know, you can think you're seeing something. You can trick yourself into seeing something. Not to say that you were definitely hallucinating. This is something that I do just kind of as a game for myself, because I work a lot and alone in dark buildings. So I like to check myself a lot by convincing myself that I'm seeing like that creepy fucking like little Moo character, you know, or Momo, whatever the hell. That thing is fucking freaky. But I convince myself that I see it, like, you know, around the bends of stairs down at the corner, because, you know, like you're working by yourself in a dark building. You can creep yourself out really easily. So I do it intentionally. I convince myself that I see something at the bottom of the stairs, and I can visually see it sometimes. And then I go investigate, and it's never there because I just told my brain that it was there. And it helps me keep myself in check from accidentally seeing things go, you know, bump in the night, so to speak, because I know how to create that in my own head. I know how to make it happen. It helps me understand it not happening accidentally. So there's a lot of things that your brain can create. There's a lot of different things in the environment that can make certain noises. And when you have a certain set of beliefs that help back up a lot of this stuff, you're like, oh, that's what that was. Oh, shit. You know, so there's a lot of things that you can try to explain about the world if you have these precognitions on what explains things that are unexplainable. I mean, that's just my take. Not to say that, you know, not calling you crazy, but there's a lot of explanations that we overlook because we've already convinced ourselves otherwise.
I mean, I see the scientific point of view, and I respect a skeptic. Not everyone is going to believe everything.
Right.
And I mean, at some point when it comes to like people talking about Bigfoot or some weird shit, like that's crazy. But I mean, this can't be the only dimension. This can't like be the only plane. I have more of a Wiccan belief system.
Why
So,
can't
like,
it though?
Honestly, it started, and this is going to sound crazy, it started with a cat that just ended up being too important to me and having way too much influence in my life, and having done so much and like Like, literally, I have full custody of my son because of this cat. This cat actually physically saved my life. Like, it all started with him and just the bond that I felt that was he wasn't just an animal. There had to be something more there. He understood too much. And that's when I started looking into Wiccan stuff. And I ended up learning that even something down to his name was a Wiccan stone. Like, it's something that's used as calming energy. It's supposed to guide you, which is exactly what he ended up doing. Like, it's a really positive energy stone. And I didn't know anything about Wiccan anything when I named my cat. I didn't know that he was going to be as important to me as he was. But if anything, I feel like he is my familiar. And that was the belief system that got me into Wiccan culture. And I mean, now I mess with my stones and I just keep on my positive juju and try to live a good life.
Well,
Cats are always important.
they are. And I do want to thank you for calling. We're way over time, but my cat, I understand where you're coming from. My cat is my life. Band-Aid, I don't know what I would do without that little guy. He doesn't know that. I tell him I love him a million times a day. I hope he knows that, but I don't know. He's made my life that much better. He's a little shit and a little pain in the ass, and he attacks any woman I'm ever interested in. If I'm not interested in a woman, he doesn't attack them. But if I'm interested, he attacks. He is a little shit. So, Cheyenne, I do want to thank you for calling in and sharing your experiences.
Anytime. Happy to shed like a little more positive light on that. Leave it off on a good note.
Do you? Yeah, that's exactly why when I took your call, I'm like, I cannot end with that other guy. That guy was a jerk. So thank you, Cheyenne.
Indeed.
Anytime.
All right. I hope you have a good rest of your week.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
See, and that's, IQ, those are the callers I'm looking for.
Yes.
I'm not sitting here trying to, I don't want to point my finger in somebody's face and tell them how wrong they are. I want to talk to them and understand where they're coming from. But I don't have patience for people insulting my co-hosts. Like, when it comes to me personally, honestly, I don't care. I don't get offended. Call me names, call me whatever. But my co-hosts or my friends, no. That's where I draw the line. And those two callers were incredibly disrespectful. And I always want to create an environment that is conducive to healthy back and forth dialogue. But those people seem are more interested in script and belittling us and trying to catch us in traps. Like, ooh, cool, you caught us in that, as you said, logic puzzle. Still doesn't get us to a belief in God in any capacity.
Yeah, I'm done with pre-sup arguments. I bid on them for a little bit, but I mean, they're really just, aha, gotcha moments. And they just try to trap you in your words to get you to secede to whatever it is that they want you to abide by. And it's prescriptive, and I'm done with that prescriptive bullshit. They want to talk about anything. They want to talk about the weather, AC/DC, whatever the fuck. That's cool. I'll drink a beer with somebody. I don't care what you believe in. Don't tell me what I believe. I'm done with that shit.
Right. Exactly. Like, let's talk. Let's find a middle ground here. I'm tired of people just talking past each other and yelling at each other. Like, we'll find middle ground. Just be polite to us and we'll be polite to you. It's pretty simple. Anyways, IQ, what do you got going on this week?
A whole lot of working and moderating chats and just doing whatever it is I can to try to, keep my head above water. So that's pretty much my weeks in a nutshell. It's I just do whatever I can.
All right.
Every day's a new day, man. This has been great. Thank you for having me on.
Dude, I'm so glad you reached out. And for those that don't know, so here's what I'm doing. Every other week, Brainbug is my co-host. On the weeks he's not co-hosting, there will be a question mark, and you will not find out who the special guest is until we go live. So if you are interested in co-hosting on The Perspective, let me know. I'm constantly looking for new people to rotate in, but understand I am trying to do things differently. This is not this is a show meant for productive back and forth dialogue. We want to lend a compassionate ear and give people, a little bit more time to explain their side. So if this sounds like you and something you're interested in, let me know and we can get you on the calendar. I would, before I promote my upcoming shows, I do want to thank my patrons real quick. Cindy Plaza, Kenneth Leonard, Kathy Leto, Ian Davenport, Best Name Ever, and Blazing Wizard Pope. And if you like what I do, consider becoming a patron for as low as $1 a month.
$1?
Yes, only
you got $1.
By clicking the link in the description. So then tomorrow at 5 p.m. Central Daylight Time on youtube.com/YFNA News, my other channel, will be In Black and White, where we'll be sitting down with 2 Republicans to find out why they support Donald Trump. Then Thursday at 7 p.m. Central Daylight Time on this channel, I'll be sitting down with the Antibot to discuss MLMs. And then after that at 9 p.m., I'll be sitting down with Hannah Vaughn, and we'll be talking about mental health and intimacy, which I'm incredibly excited about. Everyone, I appreciate everyone watching. I hope everyone has a safe week. I hope you all take care of yourselves and wear a mask. And I still need, if anyone has any ideas, I need a closing tagline. I haven't thought of one yet. So IQ, if you have any ideas, anyone in the audience, if you have any, please let me know. And
well,
IQ,
you know me in words, man. I can whip you up something.
please, whip me up a closer that I can start using. Like, welcome to, IQ, welcome to the neighborhood. No, that's not it.
well, I'll work on you. We'll get something happening.
All right. Thanks for doing this, IQ. And everyone, make sure you like and subscribe and click that notification bell so you get notified every time we go live. Good night, everyone.
See you guys.